got so much motherfucking design on right now.
Breaking news. Chinese idol Kris Wu sentenced for abuse. The moment that shook the world. What if I told you that the glowing star whose music filled stadiums, whose face graced billboards, and whose fame crossed oceans, would one day be brought down by a truth no one wanted to believe? This is the story of how Kris Wu, once idolized, once untouchable, fell from the heights of fame, and the courtroom revealed sins that changed the lives of many. This is not just a criminal case. It is a story of power, betrayal, and justice finally served. The Rise Chen Yifan, better known to the world as Kris Wu, was born in 1990. A Chinese-Canadian who rose to fame as a member of the K-pop group EXO, then became a solo star in China. He acted in films, landed endorsements with luxury brands, and his music videos streamed in millions. To fans, he seemed invincible. To the public, he was a legend. But behind the lights and glitz, a darker storm was brewing, allegations that would shatter the image, and force a reckoning not only of a man but of the celebrity culture that had elevated him. The allegations in mid-2021, a young influencer named Du Meizhu came forward with serious accusations. She claimed that Wu had used his fame and power to lure girls, promising work and opportunities, only to exploit them. Some of them were intoxicated, unable to consent. Among them, she claimed, were minors. Wu denied the claims. The accusations flooded Chinese social media, and multiple women followed suit, speaking up about similar experiences. The authorities took notice. Investigation followed. Detainment. Arrest. A trial ensued, though behind closed doors to protect the privacy of the victims. The conviction on November 25, 2022, the Chaoyang District Court in Beijing delivered a verdict that stunned millions. Kris Wu was found guilty on multiple counts. He was convicted of rape, specifically, that in November and December 2020, he had sexual relations with 3 women who were intoxicated and unable to resist. He was also convicted of group lewdness, or assembling a crowd to engage in sexual promiscuity, for actions dating to July 2018, involving 2 women who were similarly intoxicated. The sentence, 13 years in prison, 11 years and 6 months for the rape charges, plus 1 year and 10 months for the group lewdness charge. Beyond the criminal conviction, Wu was also found guilty of serious tax evasion. He evaded using false deals and disguised business entities to hide his income. He was fined 600 million yuan, roughly 80 to 84 million US dollars, for failing to report income, evading taxes, and concealing earnings through domestic and foreign affiliated companies. The fallout justice was declared, but its echo reached much further than the courtroom. Wu's appeal to overturn or reduce the sentence was heard in 2023 and rejected. He will serve his sentence in China and be deported to Canada after completing his term. Endorsement deals evaporated. Brands once proud to associate with his fame cut ties. Social media channels, streaming platforms, public appearances, all of it was erased or suspended. His presence in China's entertainment world collapsed. The significance this case is not just about one man's crime. It is a mirror held up to an entire industry, a society, and to the world that watched. It revealed how fame and influence can mask abuse. It showed how victims still face immense courage in speaking out, especially within systems where public image is tightly controlled. It pushed conversations about consent, power imbalance, and celebrity accountability into the open in China and among Chinese-speaking communities globally. The aftermath, and now, years later, the story lives on in 2 forms: legal precedent and deterrence. The conviction sent a message: no celebrity is above the law. No brand deal, no fame, no fan following can shield someone from consequences. Voices of the survivors. For every Du Meizhu or unnamed woman who spoke, their stories have inspired others to come forward, to demand truth and justice. Reflection on society's role. The case forced fans, industry executives, legal experts, and ordinary people to ask themselves what they allowed, by silence, by idol worship, by ignoring rumors. Personal cost. For Wu, the loss is monumental. For the victims, the trauma is deep. For fans, trust is broken. For society, the calculus of celebrity and virtue is forever altered. What we still don't know how the victims are coping. Privately, they remain mostly anonymous. Their lives irreversibly changed. What changes will the entertainment industry make to protect vulnerable people, especially young stars? The full extent of damage to Wu's legacy, and whether any form of comeback is possible. The truth: we must remember power must be checked. Influence must be held accountable. Consent must never be optional. The story of Kris Wu's sentencing is not merely about crime and punishment. It is about human dignity, justice, victims finding courage, and society recognizing that the shine of celebrity does not erase wrongs. The silence before the storm. Before July 2021, Kris Wu was untouchable. His image was perfect, clean, polished, adored. Every post, every photo, every brand partnership painted the same picture: the charming idol, the dream every fan adored. But behind the scenes, something darker was happening. Messages, invitations, private parties, stories whispered in back rooms and online forums, stories no one dared to confirm. Until one woman spoke. Her name was Zhu, a young influencer, barely 21. She didn't have power, she didn't have fame, only fear and a truth that burned inside her. In the summer of 2021, she came forward. Not to destroy, but to defend herself and the girls who had no voice. She described how it began: a talent scouting message, a promise of opportunity, a friendly dinner that turned into something else. How she woke up disoriented, how she was told she had been chosen, how she was told to stay silent. And when she refused to disappear quietly, she found the courage to post her story online. The world reacts. The post went viral in hours. It shattered the illusion. Fans who once idolized Wu were torn between disbelief and outrage. Some defended him blindly. Others demanded the truth. And then, one by one, more voices joined her. Different names. Different cities. But the same story: a message, a meeting, a night that ended in pain. They weren't actresses or celebrities. They were students, dreamers, young women promised safety by someone they trusted. For years, their voices had been buried beneath fame and fear. But this time, they refused to be silenced. The investigation authorities moved quickly. Kris Wu's name was erased from streaming platforms. His endorsements, gone within days. Louis Vuitton, Bulgari, Porsche, and dozens more, all cut ties. And soon, the Beijing police launched a full investigation. Evidence was gathered. Witnesses were called. Records were reviewed. It was no longer about gossip. It was about justice. Inside the courtroom, the trial itself was not public. But those who knew the details say the atmosphere inside was heavy, almost suffocating. The victims' testimonies were detailed, consistent, painful. They spoke of being invited to parties, of being given alcohol, of waking up disoriented in hotel rooms. For many, it was the first time they had ever told their stories aloud, their voices shaking, their hands trembling. But in those moments, something extraordinary happened. Their truth began to outweigh his fame. Their courage began to overpower his silence. The sentence: when the verdict was announced, 13 years in prison, the courtroom was silent. No cheers. No celebration. Only the sound of quiet relief, and tears from the women who had fought so long to be believed. It wasn't revenge. It was recognition. A signal that for once, the powerful could not hide behind their spotlight. The aftermath for the victims: healing didn't begin with the verdict, it began with their courage. In interviews that followed, Zhu spoke carefully. She didn't gloat. She didn't celebrate. She simply said, "I only wanted the truth. I wanted people to know that this happens, even to us, the ones who no one listens to." Her words struck millions. Because she wasn't speaking just for herself anymore. She was speaking for every young woman who had ever been told to stay quiet, to protect a man's reputation, to swallow her pain. The legacy: years from now, people will still remember Kris Wu, but not for his music, not for his fame. They will remember him for what his story represents, the moment when the facade cracked, and the truth finally stepped into the light. And they will remember the women who made it possible, not victims, but survivors, who turned their pain into power, and forced an entire nation to confront what it had ignored for too long. The final reflection in the end: this story is not about a star's fall. It is about a world learning to see through the spotlight. Because behind every glittering career, behind every idolized face, there are people, real people, whose lives can be changed forever by what happens when fame becomes power unchecked. Kris Wu's sentence will end one day. But the lesson his downfall left behind will echo far longer. Truth is not silence. Justice is not weakness. And power, no matter how loud, will never drown out the sound of a voice that refuses to be quiet.